What's going on, guys? Alright, so yesterday was July 31st, 2014, and it marked the 25th anniversary of the North American release of the Game Boy. So I'll just take a little look here at the Game Boy throughout the years. We started with the original gray version, and this is one that pretty much I grew up with only. I played a lot of the games from the original years, and by the time the Pocket and the Color came out, while I was really aware of it through the advertising and Nintendo Power, I was in high school by then, and I really wasn't playing the Game Boy a lot anymore. But I really indulged in pretty much, I would say I played at least half of the games for the Game Boy, and I was always upset you couldn't rent them, but so many friends had Game Boy games that we would, usually swap our folders. So we would, if we had 10 games and I had 10 games, we would usually just swap our folder of games. So I remember playing a lot of games, and one of my friends literally had like 60 games, and for one summer I just played all these games that he had, and it was a good time. But once it got up to the Color, that's when I kind of backed out. And then when I got out of basic training in August of 2001, I bought a Game Boy Advance. Now I picked it up with the Castlevania Circle of the Moon, I believe it was. Whatever Castlevania was released with the Game Boy Advance. And then I was able to play it, during the lighted hours of my 48-hour bus ride home. I didn't have the extra $30 or $40 for a backlit device like the Nubby or one of these things, because even by 2001, believe it or not, we still did not have backlit screens on the Game Boy. Shortly after the Game Boy SP was released, and I never played or experienced any games on an SP personally. I have to admit, I only played the Castlevania game on this system. I may have had one other game, I don't remember. But shortly after returning home, I had given this to one of my parents' friends' kids. We were on a camping trip, and this 8 or 9-year-old got so attached to this Game Boy Advance, I basically just let him have it. I didn't play it at the time, and I never had any regrets about it. And then I eventually found this one later, maybe 2009 for 12 bucks or so at a Goodwill. So yeah, that's kind of the progress of the Game Boy. And back then you had 4 batteries, and if you had you would basically want to get a Nintendo Game Boy game pack so you could play it at home, when it was plugged in the wall, and then you would charge it up and take it to places with you where you'd play Game Boy, like the zoo or someplace. So yeah, so as far as my collecting goes, like I said, I think it's kind of interesting that I started collecting the Game Boy again right around this 25-year mark. And as far as I'm concerned, I want the CIB games. I think they look the coolest. We'll just start with one here, Castlevania Adventures. I just love how, the look of the Game Boy, and, I sat for maybe 20 minutes last night just kind of staring. I lined them all up, and I'm at 8 CIB games now, so, just everything about the packaging and all of its advertising glory. This just really takes me back and really opens a lot of memories in my mind. Memories of seeing these carts through different periods of my life on shelf, and all the thoughts about wanting those games. Those are the thoughts that I feel and that I have when I look at all these carts. And it's just such a great feeling. You would never remember these things unless you saw them and really remembered how it was. I mean, sometimes a picture doesn't do it. Sometimes actually seeing the true item, true form as you truly saw it, not through a picture or video, that's what really brings back the memories. The touch and the feel of it, even, just holding it like you would have held it at the store or thinking about buying it. You never bought that game, and now you have it. So to me, that's the glory of CIB. But I do collect loose stuff, and I found some good stuff at V-Stock, and then I am a member of the Buy 3 Get 1 Free Club at Slackers, which is a great way to get a lot of fodder around town cheaply at 75% off. I mean, 100 of my NES games I got for free that way from Slackers. So let's check out what I got here. Now, most of these games I got for $4.99. I think one of them, I think 3 of them are like $6.99, $7.99, $8.99. So this was, as far as I'm concerned, this was a great deal on some loose Game Boy games, just to have some stuff to play and start with while I look for, you know, my CIBs now and then as they pop up for good prices. So the first one I got here is actually a game that I grew up with. This is what is it? It's a Rescue of Princess Blobette. I can't read who it is. Oh yeah, David Crane. I always get David Crane and another guy mixed up. But yeah, this is a pretty fun game, and if you played Boy and His Blob, then you know kind of how it works. And I actually played this game a lot growing up because, you know, well, it was one of the ones I had gotten on as a gift. So of course I played it a lot. So it's nice to have that one. And I found it for cheap. That is, I am going after the CIBs that I grew up with first. But if I find them here, I'll pick them up. So another game I got here, and I have this one CIB for the NES, that's Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Obviously I picked up the more rare, obscure games, so this is Mr. Chin. This is actually Thunder and Lightning on the NES, so this is actually the actual story of the game. I don't know why it was changed so much on the NES, but it was. So yeah, Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. Pretty fun puzzle game. And I picked up this Game & Watch Gallery #1. Sorry, you see 2 and 3 a lot. I don't know if there's a 4, but I don't see 1 out there that often, so I just picked that up for a couple bucks. All right, here's one we got here, a Tecmo game, Power Racer. It's a pretty fun little race car game, going around in circles. It harkens back to one of those Atari games. I forget what it was though. Don't really know my Atari that well. Spider-Man, not Verse X-Men, just Spider-Man X-Men. Alright, here's a cool one. Double Dragon 3. They really re-upped the game for the Game Boy. As opposed to the NES version, where I'm not sure if there's shops or not. There are actually shops in this game. So every level you get to buy a trick, a power-up, or some kind of move. So, and this game is a little easier to play than the NES version. So I couldn't pass that one up. Alright, here's a fun game you saw advertised shit ton and Game Pro and whatnot in the early 90s, and that's Altered Space. Sorry about the detail there, but kind of hard to see that. There we go. And here's another game you saw advertised a whole bunch growing up, and maybe you didn't see it necessarily advertised a whole bunch, but it's just a memorable picture, and just the red on the black, the Che Guevara look, I call it. I remember this a lot, and Meldac did not make many games. They made this game, and then they made the notorious Zombie Nation on the NES. So this is, I believe, the other game that they made. And it's kind of like a Doraemon game where you're just digging holes and stuff. Alright, here's a pretty rare game, and it still goes for really cheap, but there's not many out there. As far as I've looked around, I didn't see many at all. And it's Wild Snake. Maybe I didn't look that well, but nah. And that's a fun game. It's kind of a Tetris game with snakes. So you see in the background, I picked up Castlevania 1. And here's Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. Then we have Zen Intergalactic Ninja. Fighting Simulator. That's kind of like Flying Warriors, I believe. We got Yogi Bear's Gold Rush. We have Mars Mission. If you want to see something interesting, go look up the artwork of the Japanese version of this and compare it to the American. It's really funny. And then lastly, for loose carts, I got Bonk's Adventure. I did pay $9 for that, but it's a pretty good game to have. So there's the Castlevania. Got that CIB. Picked up Pinocchio CIB. Don't ask me what my fascination with Pinocchio is lately, but I did. It is there. And then I picked up a Go-Go Tank. There's an interesting story behind this game. You can wiki it if you feel so inclined to. And then last, I got a pretty nice game here as far as CIB goes. That's Out of Gas. So this one is very hard to find CIB. Not many sales every month or year or so. Yeah, so well, that concludes the NES collection for now. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon with more pickups. Peace.